I have lived long enough, observed deeply enough, and studied success intently enough to tell you this truth. God never rewards mere intention. You can pray until your knees are sore. You can dream until your mind is filled with castles in the clouds. You can write down your goals with golden ink. But if you do not act, if you do not move your feet, if you do not take that step of faith, you will watch your blessings pass you by like a ship you never boarded. Because God's law of increase is clear. To him that hath, more shall be given. But what is it that you must have? Not just talent, not just desire, not just belief. You must have movement. You must have action. You must have the courage to put your faith to work. I have seen farmers pray for harvest, but never plant the seed. And I have seen them go hungry. I have seen entrepreneurs pray for success, but never pick up the phone, never knock on a door, never face a rejection. And they wondered why God seemed silent. God is not silent. God is waiting for you to move so heaven can multiply your movement. When God created the earth, he built a law into it, a law that works whether you are a believer or an unbeliever, whether you are rich or poor, whether you are ready or not. That law says seed before harvest, effort before reward, action before increase. God himself never created a tree without first planting a seed. He never gave man a harvest without rain and labor. Yet many sit, hands folded, waiting for the heavens to drop blessings into their lap. My friend, God is a father, but he is not a magician. He will not hand you fruit you refuse to plant. You may say, but Napoleon, I am waiting on God. And I will tell you, perhaps God is waiting on you. The law of increase demands that you give heaven something to multiply. You take a step, God makes it a mile. You plant one seed, God turns it into a forest. But if you give him nothing, he has nothing to multiply. That is why Scripture says, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might, because heaven will never bless a hand that is idle. My friend, hear me well. The law of increase is not a suggestion. It is a divine principle, as unshakable as the rising of the sun. You see, action is the proof of faith. You can pray all night, fast all week, declare and decree with your lips. But if your feet never move, your prayers remain in the air. Even the walls of Jericho did not fall because Joshua prayed alone. They fell because Joshua marched. They fell because Israel acted on the instruction. Heaven responds to motion. A moving target is easier to bless than a stationary one. Do you remember the story of the widow with the jar of oil? The prophet didn't say, sit here and I'll bring you barrels from heaven. No, he said, go, borrow vessels, not a few. Her act of obedience created the space for her miracle. Her willingness to move determined the size of her blessing. And I tell you today, if you want God to increase you, give him something to work with. Start the business, write the book, learn the skill, make the call, take the step. Because God's law of increase is this: your action opens the door, but his power fills the room. Let me reveal something few understand. God multiplies seeds, not wishes. A farmer who kneels in the soil crying for a harvest without planting anything will go home hungry. Why? Because heaven's increase operates on the law of seed time harvest. The seed is your action. The time is your patience. The harvest is God's reward. Too many people pray for increase but never release the seed in their hand. They keep waiting for the right moment, not realizing that movement creates the moment. Even the disciples learned this. When Jesus told them to feed the crowd, they didn't sit and argue about how little they had. They brought forward the 5 loaves and 2 fish. Listen to me. What you have right now, no matter how small, is enough for God to multiply, but it must leave your hand before it can enter his. Faith without action is like a bird without wings. It may have the body of a promise, but it will never take flight. So plant, move, give, work, because every step you take in faith triggers the law of increase. The law of increase does not respond to comfort. It responds to commitment. Some of you are holding back because you are waiting for perfect conditions. But Ecclesiastes tells us, if you wait for the wind to be just right, you will never sow. If you watch the clouds, you will never reap. God is not looking for the perfect moment. He is looking for the obedient moment. When you move, even in uncertainty, you tell heaven, I trust the one who gave the seed more than I fear losing it. Look back through history. Abraham left his father's house without a map. Moses stepped into the Red Sea before. Remember the parable of the talents? The master gave one man 5 talents, another 2, and another 1, each according to his ability. The law of increase says, if you are faithful over little, you will be ruler over much. So if God is testing your patience right now, it's because He wants to trust you with people. If He's testing your integrity, it's because He wants to trust you with influence. If He's testing your stewardship, it's because He wants to trust you with wealth. The question is, will you pass the test before you ask for the reward? God's law of increase will never bypass obedience. Some people pray for abundance, but they do not follow instructions. They want the blessing, but they ignore the voice of the one who gives it. Yet in the kingdom, increase is unlocked by instruction. Think of Peter on that fishing boat. He had toiled all night and caught nothing. But Jesus said, launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch. Peter could have argued. He could have said, I'm the fisherman here. I know the waters. But instead he said, nevertheless, at thy word, I will let down the net. And in one moment of obedience, he caught so much fish, the nets began to break. Do you see the principle? The blessing was not in the water. The blessing was in the word. The breakthrough was not in the sea. The breakthrough was in obedience. So if you want heaven to increase you, stop chasing signs and start obeying instructions. God's law of increase will only work when your actions are in alignment with His commands. Because in the kingdom, instruction precedes multiplication. My friend, let me give you a truth that will shake you. God's law of increase will test your willingness to let go. You see, God is not only interested in what you can receive, He is watching what you can release. When Abraham held Isaac in his arms, that boy was the promise. But God said, offer him to me. It was a test, not because God wanted to take Isaac away, but because God wanted to see if Abraham trusted Him enough to surrender the very thing he loved most. And what happened? The moment Abraham lifted that knife in obedience, heaven intervened. The angel spoke, now I know you fear God. And from that moment, God swore by Himself to bless Abraham beyond measure. This is the mystery. God can only multiply what you are willing to release. If you clutch it with fear, it will remain small. If you place it in His hands with faith, it will grow beyond your imagination. Your money, your talent, your time. When you give it to God, you're not losing it. You're planting it in the richest soil in existence, the soil of heaven's covenant. The seed that leaves your hand will never leave your life. It will return, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. My friend, I have walked this path. I have seen the law of increase work in my own life and in the lives of countless others. It is not a man's idea. It is God's eternal principle. If you will dare to believe, if you will dare to act, if you will dare to release what you hold in your hand, then heaven will release what it has been holding for you. The hand that gives is the hand that receives. The heart that trusts is the heart that overflows. The life that obeys is the life that never runs dry.